To Refuge. There was hustle and bustle at daybreak in front of Wolverine's manor house. The morning was April all over, clear, sunny, damp, with the rain that had passed through the previous night. Passed, causing miracles. It peeled the sticky shells off leaves, washed away the rest of the autumn mold from grasses, opened the eyes of white anemones and violets, lured the gold of marigolds out of waters, washed willows and sallows, and covered them with suddenly conjured catkins. In the silence of the night, the rain had woken them with its murmur, inviting them to a wedding. And when the sun rose, the earth turned toward him, fragrant, colorful, and seemingly singing with joy. A long wagon now stood in front of the porch. It was being loaded with everything that was or could be needed during the summer. Crane packed food, spices, medicines, a handy first aid kit. Panther, provisions for companion animals, nets, pots, baskets, clogs, craft tools. And Wolverine, his boxes, manuals, and measuring rods, the bulk of nature research. All were so absorbed in their work that they drifted from home to the cart like bees, loading and loading, and the cart was piling up. "And now only room enough for men," said Wolverine, examining the cart. "If you have forgotten anything, you shall have to do without." "Oh, yes, I am sure I forgot something," Crane worried and groaned. And now, the feeder of the forest folk entered through the gate. The bay piebald Hathor, who had summered with them in the wood for years. She was skin and bones after the hard winter, her hair spiky and dull. The animal knew what all this loading meant. She went to Panther, sniffed his hands, got bread and salt, looked at the cart, nibbled on the hay, checked to see for the smell of potatoes and chaff, rubbed her neck on the wheel guard, and stood, looking at them with her gentle eyes, chewing slowly. "Hathor, you want your bam-bam?" asked Panther, bringing out of the house a tin cow rattle on a thong. Hathor moved her ears negatively and reluctantly turned her horned head. No, Hathor didn't want her bam-bam. A few years ago, when she had first been fitted with this rattling horror, she became mad with fear and disgust and exhausted herself trying to get rid of the thing, plowing through thickets in the hope of tearing it off. In this irritation, she had committed a criminal act. She had swung her horns at Panther, roaring grimly, "Murder! Murder!" But that was a long time ago, at the very beginning of her forest service. Since then, Hathor came to understand that putting on Bam-Bam meant the coming of the blissful life in the wilderness and the abundance of pasture and water, and of unlimited freedom. There would be no cowherd and no stick, no dogs, no chain in the stuffy barn, no treacherous horns of envious companions. Hathor had lost her herd instinct over the years, and, let out of the barn, she did not so much as grunt a single word of goodbye to her winter companions. Without enthusiasm, but also without protest, she allowed herself to be fitted with Bam-Bam. "Panther, harness up Patch Pelt. I'm going to fetch our householders. You take the birdcage, Crane," commanded Wolverine, entering the house. Crane now placed on the cart a large basket covered with a colorfully embroidered napkin. Panther and Hathor breathed the scent with delight. They smelled fresh rye bread. "The chief is such a driver today that breakfast somehow went missing," said Panther. "I can't resist it when it smells like this." He reached for a knife in his belt, lifted the napkin, made a sign of the cross over the loaf, and sliced off a hunk. He broke it, and they all shared it. Hathor's wet mouth slipped in among them for company. "Ah, right. Chief ordered harness," Panther remembered, turning to the stable. Soon, a piebald mare came out into the sunny yard, treading cautiously. She pulled Panther down to the well, drank her fill, and then went up to the wagon of her own accord. She tasted the hay, searched the muzzle bag for chaff, snorted, yawned, stretched, and, with resignation, gave her head to the collar. "Do not complain about the load," said Panther. "We know you're with a foal. When we come to mud and sand, we will jump off and go on foot. Now, come on in the thill." He pulled the straps on, harnessed her, and stood ready for the journey, sharing his bread with the beasts. "Crane, tell the chief that all is ready. The way is long. We'll barely make it for supper." Meanwhile, in the manor, Wolverine struggled with the householders. Stomper, a hedgehog, and Jake, a squirrel, were the height of contradictions of customs and preferences. They knew little of each other, but enough to hate each other, if only because neither would let the other sleep. During the night, Stomper frightened Jake with his incessant tramping. The squirrel stuck out his head from his nest and cursed, "You filthy crawler, centipede eater, slipper sleeper, may you choke on a frog. Your stomping prevents us from sleeping." And during the daytime, while rummaging around, Jake would peer over the armrest of the couch and, trying to stash away a few nuts, drop them on the sleeping Stomper, who wiggled and hooted furiously. "You brawler, you mischief maker, you jester, clown, scarecrow, bird's laughing stock. May tree resin stick your tail to your nose. May your mouth never close on your teeth." This quarreling lasted all winter. If the two had anything in common, it was their hatred for Mrs. Barker. She actually lived in a stable, but sometimes came into the manor house, sniffing everywhere, upsetting everything, noisy and annoying beyond all expression. She was true poison. Although Jake was safe at the top of the stove, the very appearance of Mrs. Barker gave him palpitations, and he held his hands dramatically to his puffed-up chest. Stomper, under his couch, suffered from liver attacks and asthma. Today, taking advantage of the turmoil of the trip, Mrs. Barker slipped into the house, causing terrible panic. She chased Jake onto the wardrobe, barking threats and impertinence at him until she ran out of breath. She then sniffed Stomper in Panther's old boot, and, unable to get to him, dragged that boot all around the room. At this, Wolverine arrived, grabbed her by the neck, and unceremoniously threw her out of the house. But by then, all the householders were in total rebellion. Stomper was so angry that he jumped up and down in the boot and snorted, "That's it! That's it! I don't want you! I don't want to go to the forest! Don't touch me! Get away, away, you wicked false friends! That servant of yours wanted to eat me. In fact, she may have eaten me for all I know. I can't even tell, I'm so upset." "No way am I coming down either," Jake squawked from the height of his perch, his little hand pressed to his heart. "I'm not stupid. I am not leaving here. No way. Nobody in my entire clan has ever heard so many insults as I did today from that evil creature. You've got to make up your mind. It's either her or me. And no, whatever it is that you are holding in your hand is not going to change my mind, even sunflower seeds. I have my pride. You have abandoned me to the beast. What? Am I to take that sort of abuse?" "Very well," said Wolverine. "Suit yourself." And, putting a handful of nuts back in his pocket, picked up the boot with Stomper. "Stomper, that beast is not coming to the forest with us. You will play to your heart's content there. Remember how many greasy worms there are? And how soft the moss to sleep in? And in the hut, how much milk and cheese and fish livers you can have any time you want? Get out of that boot. Are you not ashamed to be carried around in that like some sort of troglodyte?" "But I happen to want to sleep in this boot," snorted Stomper and froze. "Well, Jake, are you staying behind? Because I'm in a hurry. Goodbye then, the window is open." "What do you have in that pocket? Show me." Jake jumped down on Wolverine's head and slipped into his pocket. There was a crack of the walnut shell and a soft purr of satisfaction. Peace had been made. "Ready?" Crane stuck his head through the door. "Grab your fiddle and off we go." "Off we go," commanded Wolverine, sticking the boot with Stomper among other packs and jumping onto the wagon. Crane held onto his crates. Panther jumped onto the thill. The mare snorted eagerly. Hathor swayed, and the caravan started. They went through the gate, onto the dirt road, bumpy and muddy, and looked at the bluish line of forest far away. The breath of the open spaces enveloped them now, relaxed their lungs, brought color to their faces, and lit their longing pupils with the fire of joy. "The anthem! The anthem, Chief!" Panther reminded them. And Wolverine sang to the blues of forests and fields. "It's time to go, it's time to go, you commander of our armies. Here's the oaken wreath for your helm, the rosemary club for your hand, your golden arrowhead. You will lead us, on to our golden trail, where hearts and songs have time to bloom, where dormant forests quiet wait, and the eagle's silent flight. You'll take the world in your triumphant march, where out of ashes new flowers bloom, where dawn breaks out from the jail of night, the battle of our lives."